U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
Nobody likes Vosh. They always hate. They always are like, no, not Vosh and Hassan.
The Biden administration just made a move so devastating to the future of the U.S. economy.
I don't know who this is. Looks like a propaganda channel, so this could be good or bad.
We are going to look back at this decision as the pivotal moment that China officially surpassed the U.S. in both innovation
Why are
and
you trying
industrial.
Propagandist.
Let's break it down. Earlier this week.
Why is he trying to talk to me like he's trying to pick me up at a fucking bar? Look at all the fucking lead behind him.
Lead.
Yeah, all that top shelf, that's all fucking lead up there. That's ceramic with paint on it. Right? It's like memorial cup. These fan memorial cups will have higher levels of lead and stuff too, because they're supposed to be decorative and not meant for drinking.
Not actually using.
Yeah, so I'm sure this guy has a high lead intake, judging from his background, is all I'm saying.
Quadrupling of U.S. tariffs against Chinese EVs. Yes, you heard that right. The U.S. government is literally raising tariffs on Chinese EVs from 25% to an astonishing 100%. Now, at first, this might seem like a reasonable idea.
Thing.
I'm sure many Americans are thinking, well, that's good. We don't want cheap Chinese vehicles overtaking the American.
I can't wait for all the propaganda.
Well, you don't want cheap Chinese vehicles overtaking the American. Yes, that's true. But it's also consumer protection. These vehicles do not meet the standards. If a Toyota Hilux can't get here, why are we not bitching about that? Instead, we're focused on shitty Chinese EVs.
That's actually pretty funny that a Hilux can't get to America, but the big, like, F-250 Silverado things exist.
Yeah.
And those are, like, twice as big as the Hilux.
They legally can't sell Hiluxes here.
That's dumb. But you can sell the Toyota Tundra, which is twice as big.
Auto industry. I'm sure these tariffs are put in place to help ensure our American auto companies can continue to thrive in the future. But
how can Ace live his American dream when he can't buy a Hilux here?
Hello, sir. What American motor company is thriving?
Tesla.
I'd like to know. No, they're not.
Ford.
Maybe Ford. Ford might be the only argument.
F-150, baby.
That might be the only argument. Outside of that, every American motor company has failed.
Yeah.
Or to this story.
Did you do the
Biden
Instagram
isn't just
post?
stopping with Chinese EVs.
Yes.
Okay.
I tagged you as well. I'm all over it.
Yeah, I just always forget to. 3 hours later,
he wants to take down China and all of the world's most important industries. I just imposed a series of tariffs on goods made in China. 25% on steel and aluminum, 50% on semiconductors, 100% on EVs, and 50% on
should have been 100% on solar panels and then ramp up your own production of solar panels.
Panels. China is determined to dominate these industries. I'm determined to ensure America leads the world in them. This is a bold claim from Biden for two main reasons. The first is Biden is completely delusional on America's current level of manufacturing. Our factories are decreasing, not increasing in America.
Did he say manufacturing?
And he has no plan to reverse that trend. Second, Biden is passing tariffs that will not only backfire and hurt the U.S. economy in the future, it's going to hurt the average American consumer the most. Let's break it down. We'll start with steel production, where this graph shows that in 2022, China produced over 1 billion tons of steel, equating to
Chinese steel. Shall we go into the history of Chinese steel?
54% of the world's total. The United States, on the other hand, produced a mere 80 million tons. The cold hard truth is that the American steel industry peaked over 50 years ago and has declined by 40% since 1973. There's no credible evidence to support Biden's claim that somehow the U.S. can ever lead the world in steel production. For reference, let's just look at China's.
This is a literal straw man. He never said steel.
Well, also, hang on. Let's just be clear here. Our big steel partner is Japan. Right, we've been over this in these steel purchases already. Okay, so I mean, just look at those two out of the graph he's showing right there alone, right?
So what?
Like the real chunk, you really can combine America and Japan. It's actually like a bigger chunk than China's still producing more, of course, because they have the manufacturing capacity and the labor for it.
Yeah, they're also not exporting their steel. Not really.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a massive export. They use most of their steel in the buildings that they end up knocking down. You fucking moron. You fucking massive dickhead. Jesus Christ. Also, together it's 200 metric tons. So, like, I'm going to say India and South Korea, you could probably block these together Oh, Turkey, NATO member. You could probably block them together. Germany, NATO member. Block them together too. Great. All right. Problem solved. We don't need China.
Yeah,
Great.
South Korea.
I'm glad that we could associate.
Some of these are
most
BRICS
of
members, though.
Yes. But the addition of Brazil and Russia to China is negligible.
And India, they're a BRICS member.
Sure.
the other hand, produced a mere
India plays both sides at the same time.
Yeah.
million tons. The cold hard truth is that the American steel industry.
Well, it's like the way that you're comparing economies as well. It's like, okay, oh well, these are different import export economies. Like China being an export economy is in its own category in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. It's not even in the same discussion.
Like, why would the U.S. if the U.S. is an import economy, why would it matter how much they produce of something?
Yeah, exactly. And also at the same time, I wouldn't even put China and America in the same category.
Yeah, because they're two different styles of economy of import.
Yeah,
and export.
exactly. Like China wants to be a superpower, but they can't be a superpower as an exporter. You need a weak currency for an export country, which is why you suppress wages in China to keep the currency low. They just did a massive deflation of their currency. So, like, what the fuck are you talking about? How are they going to be a superpower? How are they going to take over?
Yeah, the thing is that
money?
I think China has a lot of economic influence in the world, but like the influence they have to pressure states is like dog shit.
Fake. It's fake.
Like not. It's like not there. Like they have some stuff with, like, obviously in the region, like Malaysia and Singapore. There's a lot of like Myanmar as well. Like there's a lot of in their immediate region, as any country would, and especially a country of their size. Afghanistan.
Yeah. Because it's like it's just like you're just not you cannot be a superpower being
I think Iran's external footprint for influence might be bigger than China's as far as like imperial influence.
Yeah, but they're even if they could influence,
I don't know, because the whole 9-dash line is a lot of regional influence in that region.
It's not influence though. It's just projection. It's power projection. And people are saying,
that's the same thing with like Turkey and Iran and all those countries that I look at as well. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's hard power. I'd say it's power projection because they can't control it, and they're having people push back. The US is getting involved. China can't do shit. They have no hard power. And even their soft power is fake.
I think if they didn't switch, if Xi wasn't the guy, it would be a lot different. I think like if with Hu Jintao and Deng Xiaoping, China had a lot more sway over things, especially because people wanted them to be like
the rest of us.
People invested in them to develop them into a manufacturing and export nation. So because the Dengenizing of China happened, like they probably had more influence back then than they do now on a lot of stuff.
But also at the same time,
too simple
because they
sometimes naive.
Because they're a manufacturing hub, and because of how much manufacturing does happen from there, we can go elsewhere.
How many wars of aggression has China started in the last 70 years?
Jesus fucking Christ. The comments can wait.
No.
Jesus fucking Christ. You do this all the time. China has invaded multiple countries. They've also committed multiple genocides in the time that the CCP has taken over. Not to mention, I don't think they expanded under the CCP. I think they expanded under the last dynasty. However, it's the Belt and Road is imperialism. We can continue going here. The multiple genocides, the ethnic cleansings. They invaded Vietnam and got clapped. They also war of aggression. The fuck is that?
Yeah. Also,
it's like war of peace.
The unified Maoist front. I mean, it could be strongly argued, and I do argue this, that the Unified Front of Maoists started the war in Afghanistan. So if we want to blame Afghanistan where at point zero for the war, well, then it's China's fault because of the Sino-Soviet split. Even though they never set Chinese forces into that country. Just like how the U.S. goes plenty of places with their child soldier brigades.
Like these are not countries to
like
support.
I don't know why you're like sucking a state's dick, dude. Like they're not gonna fuck you.
Like it's just the state of China, everything that comes out of that country is a lie. There is no truth in anything that they say.
I mean, it was better under Hu Jintao.
Yeah, I'm obviously talking in right now because I'm not talking about 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Totally
Like we're talking
out of
right now.
our common sense.
And at this point, they're just not going to do anything. Also, we don't want people like Xi Jinping controlling. As cringe as this is, it is an actuality, and if we're living in reality, we have to acknowledge that this exists. Is the rules-based world order. We do not want China, Iran, and Russia controlling this.
Yeah, the U.S. has really been no better as of late.
No,
you know, I think,
no, they haven't.
I think the big thing there is really that the U.S. needs to actually also stop being fucking lying hypocrites about what their values are and actually stand up for something.
Yeah, they are, and their government
everybody.
reflects the attitude of their people
Nazi
as well.
here.
Because their government reflects the attitude of the people as well, which is just get your own money and fuck everybody else. It's a real hostile culture that is not. It's very conducive for capitalism, which is exactly what China is a capitalist country. You've just got state oversight, and funny, it almost sounds like fascism, doesn't it? The more you describe China and how it actually works, it leans more and more towards private ownership of companies, but like state involvement. Interesting. You know how the people who define fascism incorrectly, but partly true, is fascism is the what do they say, that it's the collaboration of state and corporation, something like that. Partly true, and that is what China is, a collaboration between state and corporation. It really doesn't matter what your opinion on the Chinese are, or the Americans,
bro, hang
or
on.
the Russians.
Are you defending Iran now? Like they've destabilized more of the Middle East than the U.S. at this point. Like, how do you beat the U.S. in destabilization of the Middle East?
It is pretty impressive. Not to mention the femicide and the fact that they execute more people than the second most, the country that executes the second most, China, funnily enough.
Yeah, the U.S. hasn't been. It's been a lot better lately. People stay on death row forever and then die on death row at this point. But the U.S. was not good there either.
No, and this is kind of pointing to the point that I'm overall making here, is that none of these nations, none of these states are good. Thus, you should never support the states. It's just
Again, you're framing this as like that we're like pro-America here. Like, do you even watch what we talk about? Oh gosh, no, like what? No, you have no idea what you're talking about. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's just not true.
Well, yeah. There's capital F fascism and lower F fascism.
There's a reason why everyone in the Middle East hates Iran right now, except for the governments that they've gained control of.
They destabilized themselves with their revolution. They destabilized themselves.
And then the U.S. assisted and helped put the Ayatollah in power, and people want to act like the only thing they want to recognize is the coup that was done by the British as being an American coup with Mossadegh. Like, the Shah of Iran might have been even worse. Like, if he stayed around, it might have gotten even worse.
It might have, yeah. We might not have had
Yeah,
Saddam invade Iran, but we still probably would have had him use chemical weapons on Kurds.
yeah, and like you look at like
It's not your daddy's fascism.
the Iran under the Ayatollah, it's like, hey, we have all these military assets that were left behind here. They did a lot of exporting of violence, and like even to the point where until the Balkans happened, the word that people would use was the Lebanization of a country. Now we say the Balkanization.
Mm-hmm.
Like Israel was part of that too. Syria, Egypt, but at this point, well, Syria can't really do shit but destroy itself at this point, and it didn't really do shit in the Arab-Israeli war. But Egypt, like, has progressively gained this reputation, not under Sisi, of like helping be a peacemaker, holding the Middle East together. Like Egypt has had a great reputation, and also. Again, I don't know, like I also defend Castro all the time and how much exporting he did of positive revolution to so many places. Castro is like, as much as a dictator he improved over Batista. And at this point, it's very apparent that they're the only ones who can actually claim that the sanctions that America has put on them are fucking them over, because there's no reason for the sanctions to be there.
Yes. Yeah, there's no actions that Cuba has taken in the last 40 years that would justify them.
I'd argue they never took any action that was...
Sure, it was the
Cuban Missile Crisis, really. And they didn't even really... So what's your vision of global hegemony?
No hegemony.
There is... I mean, there's people who have power, and there's different splits of the pie in different areas. Like I said, if you want to talk about oil and OPEC, you obviously... are talking about a totally different thing than if you're talking about the standard of defense, where you're talking about NATO. Like, the world is a multipolar world, and like there's very few endorsements that you can give of certain things. Like I just said, Egypt has been great as far as the policy in the region has been. They've pulled a lot of things together in the region. They've actually improved the region a lot. And meanwhile, they've had fucking literal insurgencies this entire time. Like Muslim Brotherhood still comes out of Egypt, but at least they like don't embrace them like the IRGC does. Like, like compared to the fucking Turkish Ottomans and shit. And then the Cuban Missile Crisis only happens because of Turkey. Hassan will tell you that too.
Its year-on-year steel production by double-digit percentages. You can't just send out a tweet and magically hope U.S. factories will start outproducing China. But America's lack of manufacturing capabilities goes well beyond just steel. When we look at the data from aluminum, it's the same. China is the world's largest primary aluminum producer for one main reason. The country's strong.
They're also the #1 producer of aluminum-based explosions.
Long manufacturing industry.
Hey, let's build this aluminum plant next to a floodplain. That's going to fucking have torrents of water flooding through this fucking aluminum factory. Does that sound like a good idea? Like, the building code. Like, come on. Why would you put an aluminum plant there, of all the places? Because they can. They have, that aluminum plant explodes, it means nothing. If an aluminum plant had an explosion that size in the United States, it would be devastating. For China, it was Tuesday. They fucking made other ones produce a little bit more and cut up for the slack immediately. It's almost like they're an export manufacturing country, and the United States is one that exports and maintains trade through violence. Crazy.
The Navy's destroyed.
Wait, what? What?
Just you replied to someone who's like, "Oh my god, a gay sailor! The Navy is destroyed."
Oh yeah.
America is facing a shortage of skilled workers and a new generation of youth who simply don't want to work.
I just realized the painting behind him is like Chinese peasant type weird shit, I think.
Behind Norway and just above Iceland. Really, We barely produce more aluminum than Iceland, a country whose total population is only 382,000 people. Yet somehow, Biden believes the U.S. will just magically overtake China in production. But just wait, because the EV industry gets even better. China accounts for more than 60% of the global electric car sales, with more than half of the world's total electric cars on roads in China.
Hi, do you want to know why this
car
is?
sales?
How much of that fucking accounts for the ones that are immediately dumped into a landfill?
China EV graveyard. Let's bring this up. Let's actually do the Winston one, shouldn't we? Let's do this one. Shout out to the China show, guys. Yeah. Look at all these Chinese EVs on the road in China. You know what also they have? Number plates. Do you know what's very expensive in China? Number plates. Look it up.
But this is a field of over 10,000 Neta V Chinese EV cars that are rotting away.
600多台啊，21年的，都是
brand new
50公里以内啊，上牌
plastic still on.
新车。
And this man has just exclaimed that these BYD cars, all 2021 models, have less than 31 miles on them. Just like that field of 10,000 cars, they all have license plates on them. They're all fully registered.
There you go. So that's where China's cars go. So just so we're aware.
Okay.
And if they're not dumped in an EV graveyard, they're dumped in European ports.
So what you're telling me is all these numbers can be trusted that this guy's giving.
In China. China is pushing so far ahead in EVs, it has already exceeded its 2025 target for new energy vehicle sales. Because auto sales are...
What's its target on landfills?
80% of the EV supply chain, according to White House estimates. What this simply means is that no country...
Are you talking battery supply chain? Should we talk about battery supply chain?
Hey, you think that he
China?
Specifically picked a rainy day to cut to the White House to make it look like the sky is dirty there too?
...% of the EV battery supply chain, according to White...
Very possibly. Very possible.
House estimates. What this simply means is that no country in the world can produce an EV battery without the help of China. And it's right at this point where Biden's claim of America dominating these industries becomes quite comical. Take a look at this graph, which shows solar panel production. And once again, China is dominating this industry.
Yeah, but when you look at numbers produced versus numbers actually sold, I bet you China's percentage drops from 80 to like 10. I get like of world sales of people driving EVs now.
Like, oh, crazy. Who actually thinks Biden is going to overtake China in these things? He's just talking about investing back in our manufacturing and how we used to be the best. And he's like, hey, we'll get there again, which is an obvious lie.
Yeah.
Of solar modules. Forget about China. Vietnam currently produces 3 times more solar modules than the United States.
Guess who the Vietnam just had a upgraded partnership with, and also has been asking America for help dealing with aggression in the South China Sea.
It's epic Vietnam, and actually an actual good country when it comes to like fair exports.
A good communist country. There you go.
It would take a major industrial effort for America to make up this ground against Vietnam. But yet somehow we are supposed to believe that the U.S.
Why? Yeah, you're Vietnam, right. We aren't competing with Vietnam. Vietnam's
tariffs aren't investing. It's tariffs are so you specifically do not buy these cars, so you get put into better vehicles. So you don't have to deal with, potentially blowing up. Because that's a pretty big feature of the Chinese EVs is spontaneous combustion. Also, the door's not opening, so you cook inside the car.
Well, I mean, that happens with Teslas, too.
Well, yeah, that's why you don't get vehicles with doors, like door handles that sink into the car. Don't do it. Bad. Very bad. Also, don't buy a Cybertruck.
US can just come out of nowhere, increase its production by 40-fold, and somehow...
That's I'm still waiting for the Chinese Cybertruck to be better than the Tesla one, because it's got to be.
Like, tariffs are never meant to be for investing. It's so you divest from China.
Did you see that video of the guy throwing hammers at a car window?
Yes, I did see that. And it's like it's a gimmick. It's not actually anything.
Take China. Now, I wanted to break down each of these industries for you because it's important that we understand the reality of the situation. Sadly, we are in an election year in the United States, and presidential candidates will say anything they can to garner votes. I'm sure many Americans would love to see the U.S. become an industrial powerhouse and dominate these industries, but the harsh reality is this is nothing more than an empty promise from Biden. There is no way the U.S. can compete with China in terms of...
Guess what?
Mm.
We're a capitalist powerhouse. Suck our dick. Have fun with your fucking industry, peasant. We did that shit. We did that shit so long ago. You ever heard of the Industrial Revolution and how it fucking broke down our economy?
You know, the
hopefully China will get
Revolution.
workers' rights from their industrialization like we did. How many Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fires is it going to take in China before people get a little labor protection?
A lot, because they'll cover them up. They'll use their literal physical censorship blankets to censor it.
You know how, like, when you're a bad kid, the teacher puts you in, like, a fold-out box thing? Like, at your desk?
Instead, you just get censorship boards put around you. You no longer exist.
For decades, and China can produce things faster, cheaper, and better than American factories.
Why is that CG?
Mm-hmm. And which country would you say, genuine question here, which country would you say in the last 100 years had the most hubris? Because I would say it's the one that fell the fastest.
Germany.
And China is the closest to Germany in 32 than any other country.
I mean, why do you think your iPhone is made in China? Because these sanctions will come back to hurt the very people that...
Why it's made in China? It's made in China because it's cheap.
Slave labor.
Because China suppresses its wages. The CCP suppresses the workers' wages. A communist country suppresses worker wages to keep labor cheap, to keep their population poor, so that people still build their shit there. You understand capitalism and supply chains, right? You understand why, and you also understand why it's actually moving out of China
to Vietnam.
To Vietnam, exactly.
It's because it's literally because of China's hubris.
Yes, because China is such an unbearable thing to deal with,
and also the genocide, slave labor. And companies not wanting to be implicated with that, even though they could. Apple's doing fine. Apple said, "Go fuck yourself. We're staying with the genocide labor." Samsung, they pulled their direct manufacturing, so they still, like, obviously the microchips and shit. There's still gonna be slave labor and all that shit. But like when you buy a Samsung TV, at least it's like final assembly isn't done by slaves.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is supposed to be serving the average American consumer. Joe Biden knows this. And believe it or not, he even admitted sanctions like this indeed hurt American citizens. Check out this July 2019 article titled Biden Slams Trump's Trade War.
No, he said this. Yes, we covered that he said this. And this was one of the things
China.
We remember when we were talking about how he's not going to sell the steel company to Japan.
Yeah.
And how it would be better for the American economy. And Japan was like, business, we don't understand why he won't do it. It's a sound business decision. They're so, like, you know, everything is run like a business there.
Japan is America on steroids.
But the thing is that the reason why America is doing this is because of COVID. Because of how supply chains were hurt. I mean, it's just like how we have a strategic reserve of oil. This is really just investing on different strategic reserves so the government can maintain power if global supply chains shut down. Because America has always been this country that's going to build a giant navy, take all its people's tax dollars to put into that navy to make sure the Suez Canal stays open, right? And because of that, it's thought that they could just let Carrier go to China and all this shit, right? And they learned in COVID that, hey, there's different things. It's not just like something that a military can stop. You can't stop a virus with bombs, you know? And so they learned that, and they said, oh, fuck. The way of life and the way we've been exploiting the system in our benefit really fucked us over during this pandemic. And what's that? There's going to be more. And it's inevitable that that there's going to be more in this era that we're entering into. Oh, wow. We should definitely do something about that.
Yeah, and this guy is just like, oh, we should keep treating China like they're a fair player and a friend.
And while this guy's like, haha, the US is coping because China is better at all these things. It's like, okay, they're trying to have a small slice of the pie that they can fall back on when inevitably the next virus comes from China.
I'll listen to this incredible quote from Biden. But President Trump may think he's being tough on China. All that he's delivered as a consequence of that is American farmers, manufacturers, and consumers losing and paying more. His economic decision-making is so short-sighted, and as short-sighted as the rest of his foreign policy.
Wow, it's crazy.
Really like
it's almost
Biden.
Like Biden isn't being short-sighted when he's doing these policies, and it's because he's keeping a strategic reserve of things.
Yeah. I was just looking at what Trump's tariffs were. Okay, great.
They sucked.
Good. Yeah, they were bad. Okay, so let's go back to this twit here that he highlights where Biden says stuff. Okay, great. So we've got 25% on steel and aluminium. Great. 50% on semiconductors. 100% on EVs should be 150. 50% on solar panels should be 100%. Okay. Trump's tariffs, 60% tariff on every single Chinese product. That's why it hurt Americans. That's why. This is calculated, targeted, specific, how tariffs should be if they are used. This will be fine. If anything, this will boost and strengthen the American electric vehicle market and revive some kind of American manufacturing in motor vehicles. Possibly. Because if there's no Chinese cars, American manufacturers and European manufacturers are going to have to pick up the slack. So in this event that oh shit, EVs are now no longer going to be coming in at a readily accessible pace, maybe American companies should have some cash injection.
I think the EVs specifically is because of what we've seen and how they've really hurt a lot of poor European countries.
Yes.
Yeah. And by basically, like, they literally, not only do they have landfills in their own country of these EVs, but they shove them into shipping containers and basically force countries to buy them to clear shipping yards.
Yeah.
And so the country can then basically destroy them.
They should send them back, is what they should do.
Well, that's why you know how, like, there was like I don't know who it was. I want to say it was France, even though France was doing another partnership with China. They also told them to get fucked with the EVs. I think it was France.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And like, yeah, and I want to say like Spain might have too, but like, because they saw what China did to these other European countries. It's like it's a very obvious thing with the EVs, and also the semiconductors. That's also smart too, because the Chinese semiconductors are dog shit.
Yes, yeah, like they're literally semiconductors in like the Pixel 4 sort of thing. Like,
yeah, but if you think about this, like, the semiconductors that we're trying to produce and that Taiwan's producing, right? So because of the tariff on those cheaper ones, it's going to lower the price of the more expensive ones. Which means the F-35 is built cheaper by Lockheed Martin. Mm-hmm. So ultimately that benefits American interest because our interest is military capital.
Yes. On semiconductors, 100% on EVs, and 50%
solar
on
panels as well. China that helps Mexico.
Yes.
Throwing that tariff on solar panels, that's for Mexico. Because Mexico, let's not forget, Mexico is also a manufacturing and export economy.
Yeah, but they're also in a free trade agreement with America, so it would make sense to have the free trade agreement take precedent to China, which also is kind of concerning and should be. I don't know whether this is actually in it or not, but they should specify that it's Chinese vehicles owned, not manufactured. Well, do not let them manufacture cars in Mexico and get them to the US. You don't want these fucking cars in your country.
That's one of the things we were covering the other day when they were talking about how they're putting EV sales to Mexico.
Yeah.
So, but like, Chinese EVs might be more of a benefit
to Mexico. No, No.
Because the average person can't afford transportation anyway, you know?
Yeah, but sticking them in cars that will cost them so much to maintain is not good.
I mean, we'll see.
It shouldn't be done. Mexico should be banning them from China as well. Like, no, honestly, the way that China's trade works and the way that they can get these vehicles out of their country and dump them, they should be banned worldwide. Honestly, Chinese owned manufactured vehicles, if they're subsidized by the state, banned. Because if they're subsidized by the state, they're overproducing. They're overproducing to drop the prices, to undercut markets, and it fucks everything. Literally everything. They should be banned. Like, no Chinese imported EVs any country is the extreme, but the logical side of things. Until they fix their fucking problem and they stop overproducing, we're literally getting. It's the second time we brought it up, but it's a great example. This is China doing government cheese. That's what this is. That's literally what this is. They're subsidizing so much and said that they'll buy all EVs, and it's creating this problem. So there you go. And this video will be called "Chinese EVs are government cheese."
Because once again, it's an election year, and in order to win those November votes, U.S. politicians, regardless of their political party, need to appear tough on China. But now let's take it one step further and answer this question. Will these new tariffs even work? Luckily, we have some impressive data to show you that will instantly reveal the
Where'd
answer.
you get that from?
You see, tariffs against China certainly isn't a new thing. In fact, the U.S. first started sanctioning China's solar industry some 12 years ago.
Great.
Just look at this Reuters article from May 2012 announcing the new tariffs. And I have to be honest, the tariffs did work incredibly well. Here was the report detailing the Commerce Department's imposed tariffs on Chinese solar panels of as much as 250% of their sales price. The result was a rapid decline in U.S. imports of Chinese solar equipment from $2.8 billion in 2011 to less than $400 million in 2020. That's an over 86% decline.
Are you telling me that this is going to work? Because I guarantee that if I look into it, China was probably doing the same thing with solar panels.
In Chinese imports in just 9 years. A tremendous success for the U.S. government, correct? Well,
Well,
not
bro,
exactly,
haven't you
because
seen
despite
the fucking mountains that they just covered in solar panels that aren't connected to anything?
They covered them in solar panels. I thought that they were fake ones.
They're not plugged in.
Am I thinking about the rocks that they planted to fool
No.
the CCP?
The solar panels aren't like plugged in. They just built them all over the mountains to say that they're like the green energy leader.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, I didn't specifically see that, but I've heard about things like that happening, yeah. That they'll just build things and then lie, and then fools like this will be like, China's the leader in green energy. Meanwhile, they're producing the most coal of anybody in the top, I think it's top 5. They're producing more as the top producer of CO2 than the top 5 or the top 4. Something like that. Oh, good. Well, all of that grassland and hill and diversity,
the ecological discretion they did doing this, and then be like, look, we're leading green energy.
Yeah.
This is literally, you can see that these have been like terraced for farming and stuff. Like see other terraces, right? So like there's like, this is farmland in between here. So like how many people did you displace with these?
Like that's actually fucking crazy. What an unbelievable ecological disaster. Oh my god. It would have also reduced carbon, not producing those solar panels and leaving the trees to do their job. Just saying. So, leader in green energy.
Chinese imports into America. These
Oh,
new
here we
tariffs
go. We're
did nothing to
xenophobic, bro.
revitalize the U.S. solar industry. Over 12 years of the U.S. government trying their best to
Bro,
block solar panel
I'm
imports.
literally in a long-term relationship with a Chinese person.
Also, the CCP is not China.
I've literally eaten bird's nest soup. It's disgusting. Okay?
Now that you're wrong about.
What? You think it's good?
Unless it's something completely different.
What? Bird's
China
nest soup?
still rose to the top.
Yeah, from what I know it is.
The bird mucus soup.
Yeah, French.
Oh.
It's the bird spits on the wall, and then they harvest the wall spit, and you cook it, and it's like a gelatinous blob. Bro, she eats like these prawn crackers.
Oh, that looks disgusting. Yeah, that is not what I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Gross.
I am now
Geopolitical commentator on Wabitron documented this exact story recently on Twitter.
No, it's not roasted duck. It's like a potato basket thing. It's definitely not the same thing. It's very good though.
Twitter, and his research found out just how far the U.S. solar market has contracted since it first started introducing tariffs against China. Polysilicon, the main ingredient for solar panels, North America used to have a 28.7% market share. It's now down to 5.6%.
Wow, did you know that polysilicon in 2010 was probably not a very widely used thing? And then it's probably grown in the 11 years. And therefore, America, which had a quarter of all production, now has 5% because increased production has gone up. Maybe. I'm just spitballing here, but that's where my logic goes. Yeah.
Wafer production is now non-existent as of 2021. Solar cells have been reduced from 4.6% to 0.6%, and modules reduced from 7.6% to 2.
Trade.
4%. Arwa goes on to share. At the end,
money can buy things. Here, have US dollar. Get solar panel. Win. Buy from Europe. Very good. Buy from China. Not good.
Mexico,
At
yeah.
the end of the day, what this shows is that you can't tariff and subsidize your way into creating homegrown industries. What matters, as the Chinese have well understood, is that an incredibly efficient, innovative, and low...
Oh my God. The point is not... The point is not to build industry. The point is to divest from China. Please.
cost manufacturing process. And actually, more often than not, tariffs and subsidies actually prevent this because it shields local companies from the competition, and as such, doesn't incentivize them to be competitive, as they don't need to be. To be the best, you need competition. And one example I always reference is the space race between the Soviet Union and the US in the 90s.
I was ready to skip. I thought he was about to drop an ad on us.
Oh boy, here we go.
When the Soviets became the first nation to put a man in space, this was absolute
but the moon
for the
is
US
fake.
government
Don't
and
you know
NASA.
that?
Do you think the US enjoyed seeing the Soviet Union beat them to space? Of course not. But because of intense competition, it inspired NASA engineers to work harder and faster and ultimately win the space race and put an American on the moon first. And this is where I see a much larger problem brewing for the United States. Because when a nation can only resort to sanctioning, imposing tariffs, and trying to contain another country's rise,
I don't know. I think
can we just observe?
I think the framing of the U.S. winning the space race is kind of dumb because they both won.
Yeah.
For a while, when the U.S. space shuttle went down, we went and started launching guys out of Russia on the Suez. It's an international space station. That was a co-victory, really. At the end of the day, it might have been competition, but both sides won because they both were basically investing in stealing each other's technology, right? And it ended up, being pretty much a good thing. And just like the chess tournament and the hockey Olympics, It's like it was like a good thing besides like using direct violence. It's a good type of competition that happened there. That's actually healthy competition, you know.
Yeah.
Except it's happening at a statewide level.
Which could be happening again if China was actually not the way it was.
Yeah, and then it ends with the space station being built, so the divide becomes a unification. Also, you know why we know for a fact they went to the moon? One, because obviously they went to the moon, but the Soviets have a craft at the same time as the moon mission. And you can see that craft that the Soviets have up in the background of the moon landing.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Also,
the Soviets
landed up
something.
How they sent that dog into space.
Yeah. Are you saying so the Soviets landed something on the moon, but not people, is what you're telling me?
No. They were doing some type of different mission, and it just happened to coincide it being over. Like they weren't launched at the same time. It's like months, you know, of like some of these missions. So it's in the background of one of them. But I'm just going to say Soviet craft in background of, and also that's another thing is just like the weather. Like we started communicating weather because of the space race with the Soviets. So unlike the Cuban Missile Crisis, to frame it as a competition, I think is like really mythologizing history. It was like more of like a friendly thing, you know, like moon landing. Luna 15. Luna 15.
Are you looking shit up?
The message to the world that we can't fairly compete, so we will now resort to trying to stop your growth. We call this the Tanya Harding approach, as it references.
Jesus Christ, did he just say that America is saying that because they can't compete, they're trying to stop growth? Is that really what he just said?
And trying to contain another country's rise, it essentially sends a message to the world that we can't fairly compete, so we will now resort to trying to stop your growth.
Except that's not what's happening. I don't need to explain it. We've explained enough. I think we've gotten across the point that this guy is full of shit.
We call this the Tanya Harding approach, as it references the disgraced American figure skater who knew she didn't have the talent to beat her biggest rival, Nancy Kerrigan, on the ice. So Tanya resorted to hiring a hitman who smashed Nancy's knee before the competition. Of course, this plan failed miserably.
That's
and Tanya Harding's reputation and career was finished. Is this really the road the U.S. government wants to go down?
Do you really think... Oh my God, this guy's a fucking idiot. I'm so glad I found this channel.
But another issue with Biden's tariff scheme is that it also affects U.S. foreign policy, and once again creates an image problem for the United States on the world stage. Let me explain. One of the biggest talking points we've heard regarding China.
All you have to do is say they're committing a genocide. Also, Congo. Shut up.
China, the past few weeks, is the term overcapacity. Essentially, the U.S. government is claiming China is not playing by the rules, as the Chinese government supports and hands out subsidies to certain industries it deems important and necessary for future development. But look at how Janet Yellen contradicts herself in this recent quote.
Oh my God, they did it. He did it. He did the thing. He did the thing.
So yeah, this like footage we found of Luna 15 in the background, we didn't know this happened until after the fall of the wall, right? So there's no possible way a conspiracy could have taken place to fake the moon landing and have it be there, because we didn't know the project was going on or existed at the time. It's only much later that we saw it in the background of the footage and basically were able to see like the Soviets' files and shit.
Yeah. I've actually never heard about this.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
This Chinese space station is kind of interesting. Oh, Jesus. The International Space Station has 16 modules.
They were supposed to deorbit it.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, they were going to move it to Project Gateway. That was going to be our main space station now.
Okay.
Which is wild. Which is a wild thing to do. Huh?
What is just crashing it?
We burn it up in the atmosphere.
No shit. Fucking hell, that's insane.
Yeah.
Explicitly subsidizing investments into these important strategic areas. We don't want to see massive Chinese subsidies that will just drive our firms out of business. But let's just use some common sense here and realize that governments around the world subsidize entire industries, sectors, and companies. In China, industries such as artificial intelligence,
I've explained it. I don't need to explain it anymore. I think he's just going to be talking in circles from now on.
does hold a competitive advantage over China, all from the New York Times.
Okay,
The end
so
of TikTok.
Oh, look.
I wasn't
He brought in
exactly right, by the way.
He brought in TikTok. TikTok. It's here. He's done it all. I'm done. We've done this already. We've been through this. Thank you. I will subscribe to you. I will dislike your video, and we will move on.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?